I was late. Not fashionably late, but rent is due tomorrow, and the courthouse clock is laughing at me late, when I spotted a black sedan frozen in the middle of Bay and Mariner like a beached whale. Through the tinted glass, I caught a man in a suit, clutching his chest mouth, fogging the window with one word. I could read even without hearing it. Help. I lifted my bike like it weighed nothing and brought it down on the passenger window. First, hit spiderweb. Second, hit hailstorm. Then I was in there, unlocking the door and telling a stranger I wasn't going to let him die today. He was cold sweat and gray lips, and a pulse that felt like it was arguing with itself. So I did what I learned in a community center on a rubber torso. Tilt the head, clear the airway. 30 down, 2 breaths. Keep the rhythm and ignore the crowd that suddenly remembered their phones had cameras. A teenager in a blue hoodie finally dialed 911. A woman whispered, "Is this legal?" Someone cried. And I just kept counting. Because air doesn't care how much money you have. It cares about hands that don't quit. Sirens got loud. The man coughed once like a door unsticking. The paramedics took over. One squeezed my shoulder and said another minute, and we'd have lost him. And I looked at my dented bike, looked at the courthouse clock, looked at my shaking hands, then got back on the saddle because life doesn't pause for applause. You know what I mean? The city figured out his name before I did. Morning TV said, "Billionaire tech CEO survives widowmaker, thanks to an unidentified bystander." They ran a blurry clip of my elbow. Grandma clucked her tongue and said, "Girl, that's your elbow. Don't be late for work." 3 days later, a voice smoother than fresh paint called, "Nina Patel, Chief of Staff at Ellison Dynamics. Her boss wanted to thank me in person." I wore the least bad dress I owned, rode an elevator that smelled like money and lemon, and met Graham Ellison in a sunlit office where the ocean looked close enough to borrow. He stood because he's polite, even when his heart is stitched back together. Said thank you, like the words had weight, and asked about me without turning my life into a resume. I told him I ride. I deliver papers the courthouse needs before the stamp gets angry. I started nursing school once, then dropped out when Grandma's meds got expensive. I might go back someday. Someday being that little town most folks never get directions to. He said, "Come work here." Just like that social impact team. Take what you know about care and urgency and build programs. We can teach the rest. And the number he named didn't fit anywhere in my world. I took the folder home. Grandma shelled peas like a metronome and listened. Then said, if a man offers to pay you to do good, you already do for free. Take it, but keep your papers clean and your boundaries cleaner. First Monday on the job badge around my neck. Ocean out the window, making me feel misfiled on a nicer planet. And a boss named Carla, who could organize a parade by pointing. We planned a health pop-up at an apartment complex, where the elevator always smells like bleach and smoke. We set up screenings and translators, and a corner with crayons. And I knew where to put the blood pressure station, so folks didn't feel like statistics. We ran out of testing strips by lunch, booked follow-ups, hugged strangers. Who weren't strangers anymore. Graham showed up at the end with a volunteer lanyard like he'd won. It carried boxes. Listened to an old man tell a story about a clinic closing in 1997. Wrote down the address, like he could email the past into behaving. And nobody called him CEO because that day he wasn't. We didn't mean to get close. It happened in the spaces between tasks. arguing about whether it's cheating to cut through gas stations on a bike, laughing at how everyone loves the idea of you until they have to meet the real you. Yeah, that happened. Then the whispers started right when the work started winning. 100 families served in a day, a clinic agreeing to stay open 2 nights if we covered ride shares. Carla pushing me to lead the debrief, while some guy from another team leaned on my desk and said, "Must be nice to skip the line," with a smile that died halfway to his eyes. I told him the line I skipped was the one in the ER at 2 a.m. with grandmothers waiting on test results. He blinked like I'd turned the lights on. The article landed next. Respectable paper, respectable font. Irresponsible wording, raising questions about charitable spending and a possible relationship between the CEO and a junior staffer. They didn't need my name for people to know it. Chairs scraped the floor when I walked by, doors closed like the air was getting cold. So I went to HR before they called me. The director, Monique, had kindness you could tell had been earned the hard way. I said yes. We're seeing each other now. He hasn't touched my budget here. Here are my metrics, my receipts, my boring, brilliant spreadsheets. And if the board wants truth, bring in an outside audit and put a floodlight on it. If the work doesn't hold up, I'll take your cardboard box with a smile. Grandma made gumbo that night and asked if I loved him. Not a question more like a doctor holding a stethoscope to my face. I told her I didn't plan to love anybody. I planned to pay rent, she told me. Plans don't change. Love changes. Plans bring him here, so I can see if he has a spine. He arrived with flowers that probably had private tutors sat on our couch with his long legs tucked. Told her what the doctors did to his heart, and what my hands did before that promised to do right by me, in the loud ways and the quiet ones. And when she asked if he knew what it would cost, he said he was learning when she asked if he'd pay. Anyway, he said yes. No drama. No sales pitch. She nodded like a judge, and I exhaled for the first time that day. The twist hit at the board meeting. I wasn't in the room, but you could feel it humming through the building. Victor Lang saying the word optics like a prayer, suggesting a transfer for me, or a recusal for Graham, or a breakup to tidy the narrative. Graham brought a binder from the outside audit Monique commissioned when I asked. Cost per person, served under benchmarks, follow-up adherence, rising volunteer retention. Strong clinics, changing hours, because the community asked. And we actually listened. He said, if you want a wall, we'll build a good one. A legal firewall. Move programs into an independent foundation with a community oversight council. Publish results, quarterly invite reporters. Let sunlight do the disinfecting. The board grumbled. The vote paused. The air got thick and we launched the Harbor Foundation. Anyway, ribbon was a piece of string from a supply closet. Scissors, borrowed oversight council, was a pastor, a clinic manager, a teacher who knows every family before they ask for help, and a grandmother who makes sure we don't get fancy before we get real. If you're waiting for Skywriters. Wrong movie. He asked me to marry him on a Tuesday while we labeled boxes in the warehouse. No Neil, no orchestra. Just my name in his mouth like something he'd decided to keep. And I said yes because small kindness had cracked him open, and he didn't want to close again. We got married at the community garden by the underpass. Pastor Jay told one joke that made Grandma snort. Nina cried in stealth. Carla danced with the clinic nurse. Brett clapped like the lemon in his throat. Finally slid, and a kid from our first pop-up showed me his blood sugar log. Like a trophy, the work kept working. 3 mobile clinics rotating through 6 neighborhoods, and urgent care, adding weekends. Corporate volunteers learning to listen before they fix. Another article came calling it, "Good work, they spelled my name wrong." The comments were a bonfire anyway. Gold digger. He's buying a conscience. She's playing the long game. I read too many, then stopped, because strangers aren't louder than what we do at 7 a.m. when the van doors slide open. Here's where it gets messy again, because life doesn't hand out clean third acts. Some investors want to pull the foundation back under the company and stick it on a marketing calendar. Call it a brand pillar and measure it in impressions. Victor invited me to a private club with carpet that felt like walking on promises and said if we postpone the wedding a year and build higher walls, he'll champion us. The market likes certainty. I told him certainty is a luxury and people are not chips. Stood up voice. Steady walked out. Next month, there's another vote. Keep the firewall and the community oversight, or fold us in and trade trust for convenience. If they fold us in, I have to choose. Stay and fight from inside the machine where the dollars are bigger and so are the strings, or walk and raise the money. The slow way with fewer zeros and a cleaner conscience. Graham says he'll follow my lead. Grandma says, pray, and then remember you weren't built to be quiet. And me. I keep a pocket mask in my bag and a dented bike in the hallway, because breaking the window once taught me something I don't want to forget. So tell me where you land. Is love a liability at work, or are we just afraid of women who win on merit? And hard is philanthropy supposed to answer to quarterly earnings, or to the people it serves? Have you been the one who stopped at the intersection, or the one who filmed from the curb? Yeah, that happened. Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me. Tell me what you've seen. The snide remarks, the quiet rescues the day you broke your own window and didn't wait for someone with a nicer title to start the count.